our first big moment of today is really one of the best because we are going to recognize our veterans at this time. We are so honored to have so many of them with us today, these very special guests. So when I call your name, please stand and remain standing so we can give you an applause after we have everyone standing. And we're also going to have some people stand who are representing veterans who could not be here. So when you hear your name, please stand, and to the audience, just hold your applause until the end. I know that's difficult to do, but please hold your applause till the end. So it's a really special moment. Gary Butsky, Corporal in the U.S. Marine Corps, Vietnam. Cedric A. Flonery, Major in the U.S. Air Force, 1967 to 1997. Jeffrey Hudson, Vietnam veteran, member of the U.S. Army, Army Reserves, and National Guard. Mitch Bonet, a West Point graduate and member of Signal Corps in the Vietnam War. Jay Farron, U.S. Air Force Academy graduate, 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, pilot with distinction. Walter Orlean, U.S. Military Academy West Point graduate. Patricia Timberlake Turk, avionics communications specialist, helped free the U.S. hostages in Iran in 1980. Marshall Dwyer, Private First Class U.S. Army. The Reverend Deacon Rob Chelleman, U.S. Army Specialist for Vietnam War. Jim Kenning, U.S. Navy Officer, 1972 to 1977. Howard Rush, Sergeant, U.S. Air Force, 1976 to 1980. The Reverend Jadon Hartsuff, Lieutenant Commander, Navy Chaplain, Battalion Chaplain, Navy Reserve. James Littleton, retired corporal, U.S. Army. And now let us have everyone stand who is honoring a veteran and their family who has passed away or who could not be with us today, and any veterans in the audience whose name I may not have called, please stand at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, please honor these veterans with us, and those we remember, thank you, thank you, thank you for your service. What a wonderful turnout. What a great group we have today. I got a little choked up there because this is really a special moment, and I know a lot of people are touched by the veterans in our lives. I'm one of them as well. So thank you again for your service. Now we would like to recognize all of the clergy who are with us today. Thank you for all that you do. Please stand after I call your name, and again, for the audience, please withhold your applause till the very end so we can make it big and bold and lovely. Bishop Bonnie Perry, Reverend Joshua Hoover, Reverend William Danaher, Reverend Chris Yaw, Reverend Kanan Ellen Ekevag, Reverend Dr. Susan Harlow, Reverend Eric Braun, Reverend Deacon Rob Chelleman, Reverend Dr. Dean Aponte Safe, Venerable Dr. Tim Spanos, Reverend Sharon Volker, and Reverend Mary J. Peck. Our clergy, of course, the ultimate spiritual caregivers in our lives. They do so much every day of the year. Thank you so much for your service. I'm pleased to also note attending today are some special elected officials, including State Representative Natalie Price. Akash Kalluri, representing U.S. Senator Alyssa Slotkin. Marion McClellan, Mayor of Oak Park. And Pat Hardy, former mayor and city commissioner of Bloomfield Hills. Now, this is the 7th annual Breakfast with the Bishop. If you've been to one of these before, thank you for returning. If you are new to this, this is really a special year. This event helps raise critical funding and awareness for one of the area's first nonprofit assisted living and memory care centers, memory care homes. And I know this because my late mother-in-law, Heidi Carell, was a resident at St. Anne's Mead and just had a wonderful experience there. I cannot say enough good things about the entire staff at St. Anne's Mead and how excellent their care is for not only the residents there, but also the families. So thank you, St. Anne's Mead. I see some friendly faces in the audience from St. Anne's Mead, so you know my heart is with you. Thank you so much. Thank you. But you know what? All of you here, your support over the years has done a lot. You have helped build a memory care home. You have raised the roof. You have refreshed rooms. And you also continue to support residents in need. And now you are making the Mead Makeover possible, as this assisted living facility will have its common areas refreshed and modernized. It's going to be fabulous. The Mead Makeover, for those of you who may not know this, it launched in December of 2023. It's an ambitious campaign, and guess what? We've reached 60% of the $400,000 goal, so that's wonderful. So yes, good job, good job. And one of the major projects of the Mead Makeover recently opened. It is the Bistro. And so if you haven't seen it, you're going to have an opportunity because you're cordially invited to see it in person when St. Anne's Mead celebrates its 60th year of service. Save the date. This will be next spring, April 16th, 2026. Again, save the date, April 16th, 2026, for the 60th anniversary celebration of St. Anne's Mead, where you can see the bistro and so much more that has happened over the years. Thanks to all of your support. We appreciate it. There are so many wonderful ambassadors and sponsors who've helped St. Anne's Mead over the years, and among those making all of these wonderful and necessary improvements possible. And I would like to share their names with you. You may have seen them scrolling on the screen over the course of breakfast. Again, please hold your applause till the end because there are a few names. I just want to make sure you hear them all. The Episcopal Diocese of Michigan, Sue Johnston, Elizabeth Briotti and Mark S. Robinson. Ever Active On-Site Wellness, Reverend Josh Hoover and St. James Episcopal Church. John J. Lynch and Ann Heemstra. Advisacare Home Health and Hospice. Pat Hardy and family. Rick and Sue Simon. Health Alliance Plan, HAP. Nina Dodge Abrams. Gerald and Dale Rubin, Mary O'Rourke and family, Reverend Chris Yaw and St. David's Episcopal Church, Canon Joanne and Mr. Jerry Hardy, Samuel McKnight, Garden Gals LLC, and Terrence Page. We also want to thank Oakland Hospice, the ProSure Fund, One Care LTC, and Blue Sky Restoration for all of their support. Thank you to all of our ambassadors and sponsors. Well, we are so excited now to honor one of our incredible special guests here today. I had a chance to speak with her right before the beginning of our program. She actually was a friend of my late mother-in-law, Heidi Carell, at St. Anne's Mead. We're talking about Hester Crawford, known as the Rosie the Riveter at St. Anne's Mead, and a centenarian at the age of 105. Please welcome Jeanette Gutierrez, President of the Michigan Rosie the Riveter Association, to present a very special honor to Hester Crawford.
Hi, I'm Jeanette, and I'm here to honor a very special person, Ms. Hester Crawford, who was one of the famous Rosie the Riveters of World War II. She was one of the millions of women who stepped up to work in the factories while the men went off to war. And Hester worked at the famous Willow Run bomber plant in Ypsilanti, Michigan, making the B-24 aircraft. And something very special happened last year in Washington, D.C. And that was on April 10th, 2024, the Rosie the Riveters of World War II were awarded collectively and symbolically the Congressional Gold Medal. And only one gold medal was struck, and it is permanently on display at the National History Museum. But I have here an official replica in bronze of the Rosie the Riveter Congressional Medal, direct from the United States Mint. And I would like to present it with gratitude to Hester Crawford. And here to accept it on her behalf is her nephew, Chris. And Chris, if you could hold that there so your aunt can see it. Hester Crawford, you, along with your fellow Rosie the Riveters, helped our country win World War II. And you also helped save the world. And in doing so, you proved that as women, we can do it. Hester Crawford, thank you for being one of the amazing Rosie the Riveters of World War II.
Thank you so much. Congratulations to you. Thank you so much, Jeanette. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you heard his nephew, her nephew, but he was like, it's heavy. That is so special. And I love the standing ovation. Well deserved. Hester, congratulations. You are a treasure, and we so appreciate your service during World War II and your leadership in the factories to help our men and women on the front lines. So thank you. I mentioned St. Anne's Mead will be celebrating 60 years of service in 2026, so right around the corner. And here to bring our very first tribute honoring this wonderful organization is State Representative Natalie Price of Michigan's 6th District.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here with you all today. When St. Anne's Mead approached me, I was thrilled to make a tribute. I also wanted to share with you that last week in Lansing, on the House floor, we dedicated November as the state's recognized Assisted Living Month in Michigan. And that was an opportunity for all representatives to co-sponsor a resolution and stand behind me and support assisted living facilities throughout the state. And again, that was St. Anne's Mead who reached out, made me and many other representatives aware of the good that is done in our communities and the supports that our assisted living facilities need. Now, this tribute is specifically to St. Anne's Mead. It's recognizing the upcoming 60th anniversary, and it is just appreciating St. Anne's Mead for what is going on right now. And I just want to read a few excerpts of it. So, since its founding in Southfield, St. Anne's Mead has become a vital element in helping Michigan seniors with living and care needs. Through its devoted staff and volunteers, St. Anne's Mead has created a true home for seniors, one where care extends beyond the physical to embrace the emotional and social well-being of each resident. Its programs enrich daily life, offering comfort and companionship while also supporting families through some of life's most challenging transitions. The leadership of St. Anne's Mead has demonstrated a steadfast commitment to excellence, ensuring that seniors remain active, engaged, and connected to the community they have helped to shape. This dedication has left a lasting mark, strengthening the bonds of care and kindness that define our communities. And this tribute has been signed by myself, by all 3 state representatives who represent Southfield, so Samantha Steckloff and Jason Huskins, by the state senator for Southfield, Jeremy Moss, and by our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, and our lieutenant governor, Garland Gilchrist. So I just wanted to present this as recognition for the excellence of St. Anne's Mead. Thank you.
Representative Price, thank you so much for sharing that. At this time, I would like to please welcome Amanda Newport, the Executive Director of I'm skipping one. Excuse me. I'm jumping ahead. It was the coffee. You know, when you caffeinate, it happens. Representing U.S. Senator Alyssa Slotkin, please welcome Akash Kalluri.
Thank you all. It's an honor to be here. First off, I'd be remiss if I didn't wish every veteran in the room a happy Veterans Day, and just thank everyone in the room for their service. That's an ethos that, for the senator, who unfortunately can't be here today, you may have heard there's some things going on in D.C., so she's unfortunately stuck there. But that is an ethos that we try to uphold not just on Veterans Day, but every day through the work we try to do from our state office to our federal legislation. And so we believe that that's something that we have to that we respect. That gratitude is something we have to respect and uphold every single day, not just on Veterans Day. Turning to the to the occasion. Just want to congratulate St. Anne's Mead on their 60 years. I know there's right now a Mead makeover in the works, and so I hope that this will be this is the start of another successful 60 years. And so I just want to present a certificate on behalf of the office. Just since 1966. St. Anne's Mead has created and maintained a community in which our seniors can not only live with dignity, but also thrive no matter what their needs. We wish the facility many, many more years of success and service.
Akash, thank you, and thanks to U.S. Senator Slotkin. At this time, please welcome Amanda Newport, the Executive Director of St. Anne's Mead.
Good morning. Thank you all for attending this special breakfast with the Bishop Salute to Veterans. We're truly honored to have you all with us today. Every guest, especially our veterans, is special to St. Anne's Mead. Everyone is deserving of recognition. But there's one amazing volunteer on our Board of Trustees we'd like to honor today, and that's our treasurer, Gerald Rubin.
Surprise, surprise.
He had no idea why he was following me up here. So, let me just get this out for you because it's very special. Okay. So this is for you. We hereby honor Gerald Rubin. Thank you for your leadership and dedication. You believed in us. Your standards are high. You bring out the very best in us. We will always be grateful for all the hard work and dedication you have given us as treasurer and trustee, who makes the difference in who we are today. Dedicated at Breakfast with the Bishop, November 11th, 2025. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank all the stakeholders who have supported St. Anne's Mead.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
I love surprise awards. Jerry didn't know. He was like, what am I doing? So congratulations again to Jerry. Thank you for presenting that, Amanda. So story time. This is the best. As we begin sharing stories about these incredible heroes, we have a special tribute to a decorated World War II veteran who is renowned for 33 successful missions flying a B-17 bomber behind enemy lines. Once he returned home, he became an extraordinarily successful businessman locally and also a very giving philanthropist who did so much for so many people here in our area. Please welcome Sue Nine, who will be sharing the heroic story of her friend and neighbor, the late Major Mort E. Harris.
Thank you very much. I had the privilege of living on a wonderful street. You know, when we are young and finish our education and many of us get married and we buy our first home, nobody tells you that the neighbors may not be okay. I have been so privileged that my neighbors were not only okay, they've been extraordinary. And it's a real pleasure today to talk to you about Mort Harris, who lived across the street from me. Mort was born in 1920, and in 1939 he enrolled in engineering at Wayne State University, and the country went to war, and he left school to join the service. I interviewed him a few times over the last few years, and he told me that he wasn't sure that he knew what he wanted to do when he went to the service. He said, I was a little Jewish boy who lived on the northwest side of Detroit. I graduated from high school. And he said, and now I had left my college career. And he said, I thought, am I going to make the right decision? Because I'm sickly a lot. And they came in and made an appeal to the group about being the first men to fly airplanes in the Second World War in what was then an Army Air Corps. We didn't have the wonderful background that we have for the young men today. He said he got to thinking about that, and he thought, I'll volunteer for that because that's better than living in a mud hole. The problem was what he didn't know then, and which he told me now, that was the most dangerous job in the entire service. 90% of the men never came back. And he said, I was kind of bitter about that because he said a lot of my best friends joined with me. He flew a B-17 Flying Fortress 8 times over Berlin alone. He became a major in the service and was maybe the most decorated of all the members of the bomber air group. And he said, from supporting the invading ground troops at Normandy on D-Day, he volunteered to lead also the Air Force to go to Poland to drop off at Warsaw food and weapons, things that they needed to eat. He said it was an extraordinary experience and one that he has never forgotten. What I thought was interesting about that is that while he was pretty forthright with me when he made these comments, he never particularly shared those stories with his family. He flew more missions than anyone else. He was known as the Berlin Kid during World War II. Liberation of France earned him membership in what was called the Lucky Bastards Club. He said, believe it or not, that was an honor that he actually revered, despite the fact that we don't tend to tell it too much in public. He received France's highest award in 2017, and I was privileged to be among many of our neighbors who was invited to see him get France's highest award, because France told us on that night that had he not done what he did during the war, France would not be on the map today. Mort Harris said that he was maybe the preeminent member of the greatest generation. He won lots of awards. He received 3 U.S. Distinguished Flying Crosses, 6 Air Medals, a Presidential Citation, the Polish Medal of Honor, and the French Legion of Honor, the highest awards those countries give to anyone. Following the war, Mort then had a very successful personal life and a businessman. He was one of the 3 men who owned American Axle. And he said that because he had already felt that he had accomplished a lot in his life, he thought that charity was one of the best things that he could do. He has given huge sums of money. On his death, he left $29 million to Henry Ford Hospital to work in the pancreatic cancer arena. He left $16 million to Wayne State for the medical school for young people that are not able to financially support getting through medical school, and he's done an outstanding job of finding an unbelievable crew of young people. And he said that this has been maybe the finest thing that's ever happened to him. By the time that he was gone, he had given money to the Detroit Symphony, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Southeast Michigan, Focus Hope, the Detroit Institute of Arts, Detroit Science Center, multiple programs at Wayne State University, and then he went back and took classes after he was a retired businessman. The university now holds a huge, wonderful gym, free for all students that go there, that was paid for by Mort Harris. Mort had a very large funeral at the end of his life. He was 101 when he passed away. I always thought it was amazing that his head was as sharp as that of a 20-year-old. And he was great to be with. And we attended a very beautiful service for this nice Jewish boy at Christ Church, Cranbrook. He said he wanted to be buried with his second wife, who had been the most significant one of his partners, and that he wanted to be with her. At the close of the service, we all left the church, and there were large buses waiting for us. And they took us over to the Bloomfield Hills golf course. And it was a May day, actually a very pretty day, but kind of on the chilly side. And I remember saying to my husband, I don't know why we're being asked to stand outdoors, but we'll go along with the game, obviously. He had a beautiful buffet waiting for all of us. And the reason that we were waiting was that with the help of a gentleman I'm going to introduce to you in just a moment, who knew Mort also because he was also one of our neighbors, they had arranged to bring in 2 of the B-17 bombers that Mort himself flew in World War II to pay homage to him at his funeral. They played taps, and there was not a dry eye in all of Bloomfield Hills. That was extraordinary. And so it's also my pleasure to have you meet Jay Farron, who is my next-door neighbor, who also knew him. But Jay has a very colorful, wonderful background. He spent a lot of time with Mort. Jay is a graduate of the Air Force Academy and also was a practicing attorney. I think he's just taken on his retirement, had his knee fixed within the last week or so, so he's done a great job. He qualifies. So ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to have you meet Jay Farron, who will also tell you some wonderful things about an extraordinary man who was the epitome of the greatest generation. Jay Farron.
Thanks. Thanks. If Mort was here, the first thing he would remark and say, well, we're having real eggs today. That's not a good sign as a pilot in the 8th Air Force, because it meant it was going to be a long day, a long mission, and lots of losses. To put that in perspective, in a global war of more than 6 years, the 8th Air Force, Mort's unit, suffered 50% of all the air losses of World War II on the United States side. So when they woke up to real eggs, they knew it was a day for duty. Why did he become a pilot? Yeah, he didn't like mud, but he really confessed one day over single malt scotch that he saw an Errol Flynn movie, and Errol Flynn was jumping out of a fighter with a long flowing silk scarf and a leather jacket. And Mort says, I could be that. A little naively, he joined. He took his mother on a joyride around the flagpole right after he was given his pilot license to show how brave he was and how steady the airplane was. It was at Selfridge, and it's supposed to be about a 15-minute flight. The problem was it was a cold day and the landing gear wouldn't go down. So Mort sat his mother in the co-pilot seat while he and the flight engineer and the co-pilot cranked the landing gear down for 45 minutes to make the landing. So the 1-hour flight was over, and his mother thought it was really nice. She was proud that her son was a pilot, but she thought the airplane needed a better way to put the little rubber rollers down so they could land. In Texas, he got a new waist gunner, Charlie Wenzel. And Charlie had never flown with Mort before, and they were getting ready to take off on one of the orientation flights. And over the intercom, Charlie asked if he could come forward and speak to Captain Harris at that point. And he said, sure, come on up. We're getting ready to take off. They're in the standby position. And Charlie said, excuse me, sir, I just wanted to talk to you and make sure that a young Jewish kid can really fly this plane. And he said, well, why don't you go back to your station, strap in, and we'll both find out at the same time. He was always angry when he got to talking about World War II and some of the things that the government did not do. And one of them was they gave him dog tags with M.E. Harris on them with an H for the religion, Hebrew. And he said, didn't anybody suspect that we'd be flying over the Third Reich 33 times, and that wasn't the religion you wanted to be if you had to bail out? So he asked the people, he said, what do I do in surviving this situation? And they said, well, you have an extra step in your survival gear. When you pack down your parachute and bury it and everything, bury your dog tags with it. He was so famous within the squadron and the bomb wing that the crews that were coming in after him wanted to name an airplane Where's Mort? Because he could always find the target, and he became, at a very young age, an airborne commander, where you have 800 airplanes flying off of his wing or off of his command. In one where he was an assistant, this says something about wartime attitudes. His airborne commander on the high box lost radio control and signaled to Mort to move up and take over the command as they went into the Third Reich towards Berlin. And another airplane, less experienced than Mort, moved into that position and called out, said that they were now taking command. Well, Mort knew that was dangerous for the other 800 crews. You know, you've got 4,700 people behind you. So Mort moved up behind them and says, I have my 12 50 caliber machine guns aimed at you. He says, you have 30 seconds to get back in position and let me lead. He says, that lieutenant colonel, inexperienced, never talked to Mort again. The final thing is, we also know that Mort could have been a Hollywood star. He was mustering out in California, and saw a note on the bulletin board and said they were looking for someone who knew something about water landings. Well, Mort had 2 airplanes shot down from underneath him. One, he did a ditching in the North Sea and was rescued. So he signed up, and somebody picked him up in a limousine after they qualified him, and he went down to Hollywood, and there was a studio that said they were going to pay him $200 a day to be the technical advisor for a new film. Well, Mort thought, $200 a day? He said, I haven't made that much in a month. So he went for 3 days as a technical advisor, sat behind the stars, and went to pick up his paycheck the 3rd day, and it wasn't $600, it was $480 or something like that. And they said, why? We agreed on $200. He says, well, we have to take out taxes now. It's called withholding. And Mort says, well, that's not what we agreed to. And he says, well, what do you mean? And he says, you said $200 a day. You handle the taxes. I'm fine. Mort resigned as technical advisor to the film 30 Seconds Over Tokyo with Spencer Tracy. So he could have done that and stayed, but no, he was a little too proud, too ready. When you stop and think the arc of his life, the thing I like to think about best is the H on his dog tag stood for hero. That covers all the veterans who have done their service. Thank you very much.
Well said, both of them. I feel like if you never met Mort in person, if you weren't lucky enough to have met him, maybe you leave today and you feel like you have an idea of what he was like. And yes, H for hero, indeed. Wow. Thank you again for sharing those stories. This is what it's all about. Now to help share more stories for us of very brave veterans who've lived out their golden years at St. Anne's Mead, as well as her own special story, please stand now and give a warm welcome to the Right Reverend Bishop Bonnie A. Perry of the Episcopal Diocese of Michigan. We are so honored to have her here today.
And also, I was really struck by the work of helping getting the raw hostages released. Thank you. Yes. Thank you very, very much. And we're going to have some great folks who are going to tell stories of people who have been residents of St. Anne Mead.
Yeah.
Who do I got?
Let's get right to it. Bishop, please welcome Patricia Pat Hardy, wife of the late attorney Thomas Hardy, a member of the National Guard.
You get the middle, Pat. Love this. And Pat and I talked about this. Tom and I share a birth date, not the whole date, but. So tell us a little bit about Tom.
He would be very embarrassed to see you here today.
Why?
Because he said, all I was...
Mike, right there.
Oh.
There you go.
Because he would say, all I did was go to basic training and become a medic. And you've got me in here with all these heroes. I'm going to pay for this later.
But he was in law school, and then he
Yeah.
decided that he would also do the National Guard. So say a little bit
Right.
more about that.
I wish I knew more about it, but I'll tell you this. Can I tell you a little bit about his background?
Would you?
Like what he did, how he went to school and all that?
Sure.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right, so I know more about that than I do the National Guard. He went to Country Day. He was an average student. And in the yearbook it says, if you ever want to find Tom Hardy, go up into the attic. He'll be reading Emerson. Now, he was very interested in philosophy. And I'll take you back real fast. That's where we met. When we were at Eastern Michigan, we were in a philosophy class. But go on. All right, so he graduates, and he winds up at Eastern Michigan. And then we meet, and along comes a time, one day, that we actually get married in 1961. He went to law school at night at Detroit College of Law, and he graduated #1 in his class. He loved law, and we're really proud of him when he started his first job with his own company, Clark, Hardy, Lewis, Pollard, and Page. And you know what a great life it is when you're living with someone who loves doing what he does. And he fit in that National Guard because I have a packet of letters. I have a packet of letters at home, little sweet love letters that would always end, don't work too hard. Like, what does that mean, don't work too hard? I wasn't used to working hard. So anyway, he starts his law firm and loves what he's doing. We wind up having 4 daughters. We wind up having a whole bunch of wonderful friends in our life, and you know that's what life is all about. It really is. Thank you for being here, all of you. I see 2 of my 4 daughters. 2 are luxuriating in the snow in Florida. I heard it snowed there today. We're very happy about that. And my grandson is here. It's an honor to be here with you.
So one of the things you said is the thing about Tom
Yes.
is that he's one of the most kind people you have ever met.
It's true.
And I know he pursued you greatly after you kind of blew him off from the philosophy class.
Who told you that?
Yeah, but I think you also talked about, you said a little bit about being in the National Guard and how, you know, in the midst of the training, one of the things that really stood out for him that he held dear, even though he had this whole other life.
You bring to mind the only really memorable quote he told me about the National Guard. His drill sergeant was a guy by the name of Sergeant Winder, and he was as tough as any drill sergeant you've ever seen in a movie. And he was really tough. Everybody was kind of afraid of him. And so after that basic stint, he's at Fort Leonard Wood, and then he's at Sam Houston. I can't remember which place that Sergeant Winder was. I think he was in Fort Sam Houston. And as they're all getting ready to go home, their training is over, there's nobody in the bunks, but Tom's getting his stuff together, and who walks in but Sergeant Winder? And this is one of the proudest moments. I knew this would happen.
Go ahead.
One of the proudest moments in his life when Sergeant Winder sat next to him.
Put the microphone, yeah.
Sergeant Winder sat next to him and said, Tom, it was great having you. And it was such a compliment that Tom never forgot about it.
From a guy who wasn't known for giving compliments. And you wonder, I mean, is that notion that when someone does take the time to serve, right, to volunteer to serve, and then to have that recognition of, oh, you matter. And I want to just wrap up. Tell me what Tom's very last words were to you 2 days before he died.
I knew this would be hard to tell you. And I think I'm going to get through this. But if I lose it, it only lasts a little bit. Any one of you who have lost someone you love, you know the minute you think of them, those tears come from somewhere. No, they only last a few seconds. Tom was at St. Anne's Mead for 1 year. In March of 24, I couldn't take care of him anymore. So we looked at several places. And because Sam McKnight, who happens to be on your board for St. Anne's, he was telling us the wonderful treatment his wife, Jackie, had. And so the 4 Hardy girls and I came over one day to visit, and we happened to meet Michelle Kotwicki.
Yeah.
And that was it. When we talked to her, you know, every senior facility, memory care, they have the best people greeting you and telling you what the place offers. But she just, we said, this is where Dad's going, isn't it? Yeah. And the Hardy girls said, yep. They all agreed, which is very unusual for the Hardy girls. So here's what happens. He loses mobility. This was very hard for a jock. Tom was a, 14, 16, 100-letter man.
Keep going.
Yeah, and he would periodically, you know, he could talk, but he couldn't, he was a great communicator, but he would get lost in words. Many times I'd be sitting there talking to him, and he'd pick my hand up, and he would kiss it. So every time he did that, oops, I gotta hurry. Every time he did that, I'd laugh and say, isn't he sweet? Well, 2 days before the day happened that he's never going to get out of bed before, we were in the dining room, and all of a sudden he looked at me and he said, I'll always love you. And when he said that, it was like getting a kiss on the hand, more or less. Isn't he sweet? I never realized that that was going to be the last coherent statement he would ever make. And I didn't know at that time what was going to happen 1 day later when he winds up in bed and never gets out.
And so there is that point where we make those connections and where people, when we serve, and then are given, and people recognize that in our goodness, that is a goodness that we share. And that is what happens in the midst of St. Anne Mead. So thank you.
Can I tell you one other thing?
No. But you can tell everybody else later.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you so much for sharing the memories about Tom.
I get one last statement.
There you go.
If you met him, you would have liked him. And if you knew him, you would have loved Tom Hardy.
I believe it. I believe it.
Thank you. Thank
Patricia Pat Hardy, everybody, wife of the late attorney Thomas Hardy, and we salute him for everything he did for our country and beyond. Thank you. Thank you so much. You're such a sweetheart. Oh, thank you. All right, Bishop, you ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, please welcome everyone. And Bishop, please welcome Mary O'Rourke, wife of the late Terry O'Rourke, a U.S. Army paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division.
Oh, so a paratrooper. So, but where was he stationed?
Terry was stationed in Germany.
Yeah.
And also went to Lebanon
Yeah.
for something. He talked very little about his service. He was a disabled veteran. And honestly, I'm not really sure how that happened, except that
Yeah, tell
one of his fellow paratroopers' parachute didn't open.
So they're jumping. It's
They're
a super,
jumping.
you've done some research. It's a super, super windy day.
Right.
And they're jumping, and he jumps and he sees one of his colleagues.
cohorts, the chute did not open.
Chute didn't open.
And apparently, and I don't know anything about parachutes, but apparently you can do some guiding in your direction. And he went toward Terry, who grabbed his parachute, and they came down together. Now, my daughter said that they lived because they fell into a tree. And he told her that at one time. And apparently, they were able to grab branches of the tree and not hit the ground so hard. So, as a result, he was disabled and had seizures for a while after. And he was a diver, and which I'm sure is the
Off
reason.
platforms, not underwater.
No, both. You know, he did both. He dove in college. But when he was 5 years old, he was the, he was the fifth boy in a family of 8. And, you know, he had to show his older brothers how brave he was. So when they were all in Florida one winter, he dove off of a platform and couldn't get out of the air after that, I don't think. And he was full of the dinky dust, which I think is why he became a paratrooper. That probably was fun for him. That's all I know, is I made him promise before I agreed to marry him that he wouldn't jump out of an airplane again. Now, maybe that was mean, but...
Well, but he was an adventurer, and he got you to be an adventurer.
Yes.
Taking you skiing and traveling all over.
Right, and there were things I would have never done in my lifetime had it not been for his encouragement in the skiing. The language out of this young girl's mouth when I first put on a pair of downhill skis.
We have an
You
idea.
wouldn't want to hear. But just things like that, things that, you know, we traveled extensively, which I know I would have never done otherwise. He was an adventurer and very fun-loving and very kind.
And clearly was willing to potentially sacrifice his life to care for someone else, which is, again, even whether it's training or actual combat, I mean, the stakes are very high and they're very real.
So, yeah.
Thank
And
you.
Okay? We
I
all
think
set?
so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much to Mary O'Rourke for sharing those stories about Terry. Thank you so much. Ready, Bishop?
Yeah.
Okay, moving along. Bishop, please welcome Lisa Rewald and Ken Kondrat. Lisa is the daughter, and Ken is the son-in-law of the late Raymond Ray Votovich, who served in World War II in the U.S. Army Constabulary Forces. So please give them a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys told me that Ray was one of the last people to enlist.
That's correct, and it's an honor to meet you, and thank you so much for honoring Ray.
Yes,
We're,
very
and
privileged.
a quick shout out to Ruth's, my wife, and Ruth's sister. We're calm down here a second. Lisa and granddaughters Teresa and Patricia are out there, and thank you so much. And Ray was 18. Humble beginnings in Hamtramck. Grew up in Hamtramck, Michigan, to immigrant parents from Poland. So he knew about oppression. He knew about toughness in Europe. When he turned 18 in senior year, he just couldn't get out fast enough. He didn't graduate from St. Florian. He went right and enlisted because all his buddies were there. That's when the Allies were already invading Berlin. So when he was going into the war, you know, he became part of the constabulary. And what the constabulary is, if you're not sure, is more of the police force that really protected the quadrants of the Allies. The French, Russians, English, and the U.S. military was there, but you had to protect the borders. You had to watch the streets. So Ray ended up having a heavy artillery background when he went to Camp Wolters in Texas. He knew how to fight big guns, but he became a Jeep driver. So his buddy was in there in the turret in the back, and Ray would travel the streets at night and protect the borders, but he obviously talked about Europe, but he was one of the last ones. And Lisa pointed out today that he was more humble because he didn't see as much direct action, but he was in there.
But there was a real sense of how he was touched by how the Berliners were living. Did you want to say a little bit about just that?
First, let me thank Ken, because being the youngest of 6, Ken here is my brother-in-law, spoke much more to my father than I did about the war. So, and Ken was like a son to my dad. So I'm just very.
I lost my father early. He was 56. He was in Battle of the Bulge. But when I met Ruth, my wife, at 22, he was the closest thing I had to a father. So he was my father till he
So
died.
this is long time.
Long time, a lot of discussion. But he didn't talk so much about the battles. What he did talk about is the very difficult time the German citizens had once it was already invaded and just war-torn, how bad they had it on the streets. You know, Lisa.
We'll have a video for that.
Yeah.
We might have a little video here.
My dad, what I remember him talking about the war, he was very humble because he was a guard, basically.
Yep.
He policed the Berlin borders. So he made very light of what he did because he didn't see, he talked more about going out with the guys, I remember my daughter having to do a project in 2nd grade and having to interview her grandfather. And at this point, my dad was already in his 80s. And all he wanted to do was talk about like all the fun he had with his buddies and things like that. But then as his dementia progressed, then things start coming out about how it really bothered him.
So the stories with his 5 daughters and 1 son, he had 1 son, different daughter stories than he did with me. He was talking more about the black market and things that were happening in the tough times because there was no infrastructure, there was no police, there was no, it was just get what you can. So the military saw that and they partook in it, you might say. There was bistros, there was bars, there was things for the guys to drink. So it was different stories, but we love to talk about it. And as his dementia got worse through his 90s, he lived to 96. He would maybe not remember the lakefronts that the neighbors, but when he talked about the war, he knew how to talk about the war, and he would share stories so distinctly, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And for a guy who left high school, I mean, became a self-made engineer and did all this incredible work. And,
Yeah, he did.
And was an artist, too.
He's still amazing. He's passed away 2 years this week, actually, or next week. But yeah, just the things he did with his skill. He's a self-taught engineer, and he became, for anyone in the auto industry knows what a plaster development guy is, but what they did, it learned how to bend metal. So flat metal became, a fender or a door. And one story that I'd like to share is that
They worked together.
I worked for a short time. Right before he retired, I worked in the auto industry also. But they got the order for now the re-release Back to the Future movie. We all saw that, and the DeLorean car. Well, that's made of stainless steel. And those big gull-wing doors that come out every time, well, they got the first order. So how do you make that? So that was Ray's job to figure out how to build the draw dies to make those gull-wing doors. But what it did, the steel that came in, the stainless steel came in from UK, came in from England, nicely packed, flat stock. Well, Ray saw that they were made out of tongue and groove pine boxes. So he told the high-low drivers, do not throw that away. You're going to put it out there. So after his 10-hour shift, he meticulously took it apart, took that wood to his Attica home that he was building on the lake, and he made a beautiful fireplace out of the tongue and groove crates from the DeLorean. So it's a story every time.
He was a repurposer before.
I was
He
gonna
was a hipster back in the 70s.
He was a
The
forward
barnwood,
thinker. Repurposing and
Restoration
sustainability.
Hardware's got nothing
That's
on
right.
him.
He never let anything go away, and it's just to prove that he learned all that stuff, and he became a very good woodworker. He loved his family. He loved his granddaughters, grandchildren, loved his great-grandchildren, and he loved till the very end. And Lisa, about St. Anne's Mead, Lisa and Ruth tried to take different avenues to take care of Ray, but when they met St. Anne's Mead in the last few years of his life, you can elaborate on that.
When he had a stroke in his early 90s and his dementia started progressing, and we, of course, he was still cognizant enough to know what was going on, and he didn't want to go anywhere, and so we tried a group home, and it was just terrible. And when, St. Anne Mead just changed everything for us, for him.
Thank them for what they did.
Incredible. I was just
you so
the
much.
care was fantastic.
And right through COVID, too, which was very difficult to navigate through COVID through that whole period of time.
Oof. Yeah, no, that wasn't fun. That was no fun at all. Can we see the video now?
They were on starvation diet for, no, I was there. It was right after the war, and all they were looking through garbage cans, whatever way to eat something, They trap like dogs, cats, and different things like that. But you couldn't feel any sorrow for them, because they were son of a bitches when they were winning the war. Okay, they started it, and they played dirty during the war. Using weapons that they shouldn't have been using.
That's Raymond Wojtowicz there for you.
There it is. Telling it like it is. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, a special moment. Bishop, I understand that you are going to share a special veterans story from someone you know personally, obviously your father, Lieutenant Colonel Raymond F. Perry.
Thanks, Alicia. So my dad is, he's 90 now, and he served in Vietnam, and he was career military. And so I was born at the at MCRD, Marine Corps Recruiting Depot in San Diego, Balboa Naval Hospital. But what I want to offer to you is a piece that is actually in the Free Press today. It's an op-ed I've written. So it's a story of my dad. So ours was a military family, and the only thing outnumbering Marine Corps emblems in our house were crucifixes. When I was 10 years old, we were stationed in Hawaii. And my father, he was a major then in the Marine Corps, and he was just back from having served in Vietnam. And on a winter night, such as it is in Hawaii, he and my mom got my younger brother and I up at 2 a.m, and they loaded us into the Rambler station wagon, and we drove over to Hickam Air Force Base. And I remember being at the airfield at 3 a.m, staring at an empty tarmac upon which was rolled out a red carpet. And we were there with hundreds of military families to meet the first group of returning POWs from the Vietnam War. And we waited on that tarmac, and we had hand-painted signs and posters. And I remember as those planes landed and taxied to the gate, and the cheers that erupted as the returning prisoners of war walked down those stairs and saluted the base commander. And I remember the noise, and I remember the tears on the faces of every man in uniform there as we watched the returning prisoners fall into the arms of their families. And etched in my mind are the tears on my father's face. And years later, when I asked my dad about the memories of that day, he said, "Amazing grace." And then he continued. He said, "Remember, there was an airman who was on the other side of the fence on the tarmac, and he had a guitar. And as the former POWs walked down the stairs, he began to play and sing. And as Dad recalled, the cheers of the crowd subsided, giving way to a collective stillness, which I think passes all understanding, as the airman sang Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see." And Dad said, as far as I can remember, it was the first time I'd ever heard that hymn. We were very Catholic. And he said, the simple truth of it took my breath away. And I remember the men exiting the plane, and they were moving slowly but with pride, and they were limping, but they were erect. And it was on that tarmac on February 14th, 1973, that I saw embodied before me what it means to serve and to lead and to sacrifice. And to all of you who have answered the call to serve, you know of what I am speaking. And you know the hardship of serving and being away from your families, offering your body and sometimes your souls so that the hopes of our forebears may be true for all of us now. And all of you who have answered the call know of following orders that may come from politicians and higher-ups who have no earthly idea of the realities you face, and you salute and you say, "Aye, aye, sir." And all of you who serve know of the extreme boredom interspersed with fear. And all of you who have answered the call to serve know what we who have not served will never understand. You know that serving is leading, and leading that transforms our world frequently involves sacrifice. And to all of you who have loved someone who has offered their life for our country, my words can never fill the hole in your gut, but may the Spirit of God, which passes all understanding, surround you and hold you and anoint the scar tissues and wounds that to this day may feel raw and empty. And I'm here to say thank you. Thank you to all who have sacrificed to make our world a better, safer, more just place. Semper Fidelis. Thank you, friends.
Bishop Perry, ladies and gentlemen, serving is leading. I loved that line, and we appreciate her for facilitating all of these wonderful conversations and also sharing the story of that moment when the POWs came home, because they are heroes as well. Anyone who served, whether you were in the kitchen, whether you're on the front lines, that is service. And I know I have some uncles who fought in the Vietnam War. One was a chopper pilot, one was on the ground, and he led a platoon. And they did not want to talk about it when they came back, and that was okay. Just recently in the last few years, one has passed, but one of them is slowly answering questions if we ask. And sometimes, you just have to wait until they're ready to tell their story. But when they are, it's so important to listen, maybe record it, write it down, make sure that these stories stay with us, because this is our history and we cannot forget what they did, because we wouldn't have the freedoms we have today without all of our veterans. So thank you again to all the veterans here today and all of those who couldn't be. Thank you for your service. This has been such a special morning. I have to tell you how much it's meant to me to be a part of it. And I know this is a fundraiser to help support St. Anne's Mead, and we really appreciate any and all support that you can share to help these residents and help this facility continue to grow into the future and evolve. You may have already found the donor envelopes on the table. You can always give your gifts directly to Peggy Goodwin, who is in the back of the room. You can wave, Peggy. She's right there by the camera. You can give your donations directly to her if you'd prefer to, or you can go online like I will. Go to stansmead.org, and you can make a donation there, and also let everybody know what you think about the new website. Check it out. But again, thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. And of course, we will be saluting the veterans again next year for fall of 2026 at an exciting new location. And again, I told you to save the date for April 16th of 2026 when we celebrate the 60th anniversary of service for St. Anne's Mead. Thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful Veterans Day.